you is, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing young people in this community today?
So right now, the biggest challenges facing our community right now, it's attendance. I don't know why attendance is such an issue. I know kids in the past were like, oh, gangs and stuff like that, but I'm like, since COVID, it's not even like the learning gap. It's just kids, the motivation to want to come to school. So our attendance numbers have gone crazy, and then this year with their new administration, it's just been even more intense, because it's not even about the kids being afraid of coming to school because of legal status. It's been more about, oh, we're protesting, but are they really protesting? Are some taking advantage of that? So that's been the frustrating part, is attendance. Because if you're not here, then how do I teach you? And how do you learn? And now you were creating more and more gaps.
Yes.
So that's, for me, that's very frustrating, because I don't know, for me, it just be here every day.
Gotcha. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, on top of that, what do you think is the larger community issue?
The larger community issue, parent involvement.
Parent involvement.
And I think because I came from a school where, like, the people always say, like, oh, well, charter, they handpick their kids. And I'm like, no, parents pick the school. Parents are more involved. So for me, the key is, like, if the parent is involved, then the kid's going to be more involved, because then the parent's on the child, right? And so when the kids are like, well, my parents work 2 jobs, what have you. So did my parents. And my parents always made a way to, like, tag team, and made it an effort to make it to my events or get involved. And when they couldn't, it was like a relative. So it was always, like, involved. Family has always been involved in education. And right now, I don't know what's going on. I ask the kids, I'm like, why is your parent not here for family night or for open house? Like, it's not even about grades. It's just meet the teachers, see the space you're working in, you know, the classrooms, get to know your campus. And I think by the time they get to high school, a lot of parents also release, you know, that independence. As when they're little, they'll go to everything or they'll go to events. But I just noticed for high school, parents are like, oh, you got this, or like, I don't have to be there. Let me focus on the little ones.
Gotcha.
And I feel like this is when our kids need their parents the most. So it's crazy to me that it's backwards, you know?
Yes.
And so it's just the parent involvement. And we've been trying to get more parents to come. Now we have a parent center, so that's been a big shift.
Yes.
And we have more our parent center reaching out and trying to do events like field trips, taking parents to, like, the universities, exposing them to that environment. So I think that's cool, but we still got a long ways to go.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. And so there seems to be maybe a misunderstanding or miseducation on what exactly, like, a parent not expected to do, maybe, but like what the parents should be doing, even like as a child is now in high school. Like, although they are much older, they should still be just as involved, if not more. Cool. So my next question for you is, how have changes in the neighborhood, economic, social, political, that you've seen have affected the school and or students?
When the kids had, like, my freshman mentioned something earlier the other day, they're like, Miss, I heard there was a lot of gangs. And I'm like, well, when I started here in 2019, it was obvious. I mean, in the parking lot, we used to not, I don't know why they did not close the gates. We would see people driving in at all hours of the day, dropping off kids, picking up kids. It was bad. Like, it was bad, because I reported it so many times. I'm like, I just saw a kid jump into a car, and I was that teacher taking pictures of the license plate, be like, like, why is the kid just walking off campus? And so security was an issue on this campus. We also had having a lot of turnover in administration, but I'm gonna call out one administrator, Ms. Harsman, when she came on board. Oh my gosh, she had great systems of, like, from training the staff to the teachers of, like, safety is, like, the number one thing. If a child doesn't feel safe, if the teachers don't feel safe, are you gonna want to come to school?
Exactly.
Are you gonna want to feel like, you know, willing to learn?
Gotcha.
So that was, like, a very first thing, even for me as a teacher. I never realized how much I took that for granted, my safety out of campus. And we're not even talking, like, gang shootings or anything like that. It was just, I never thought of my safety as a concern until I came to Monroe. And then be like, oh, okay, this is an issue.
Yes.
Brought it up multiple times with the admin of, like, if I'm feeling this way, I could only imagine the kids. And I did talk to the kids how they felt and what they would do to make any changes. So Ms. Hartzman coming on board a couple years later, I saw a shift from, like, now we close the gates. Teachers like, you have to be, you know, on campus by 8:15 the latest, and then gates shut down, you know, and stuff like that. And kids too, it's like to kind of also force parents to, like, get your kids here to school on time and not dropping off at whatever hours of the day. So that was a big shift. And then secondly, we we saw a drastic decrease in gangs because of COVID.
Yeah.
So COVID, for some reason,
Gangsters are scared of COVID too.
right? It's just like
Los cholos are scared of COVID.
I mean, that was a blessing in disguise.
That is true.
To be honest.
That is true. Yeah. Now that I think about it, I have not seen nearly as many gangs like when I was in high school.
Like inside campus.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
Just
but,
not inside.
Yeah, but not exactly. Yeah.
And so that I don't know what happened. That maybe they're like, dude, I'm not going to school anymore because I don't want to catch COVID. I don't know what's the thought behind it was, but I think COVID, in that sense, was a blessing, guys, for this particular school because there was like so many gang issues.
I remember because I grew up here, right? And I remember a lot of these areas were not as nice as they are now, or nicer as they are now.
Or even feeling safe walking out. You know, we see a lot of kids walking to school. There's more kids walking now versus before they were getting dropped off or taking the bus. But I see a lot of our kids just walking around campus, you know, on their way to school or home. So that was a big shift. Supposedly it's starting again, but like taking police out of campuses, it was interesting because some teachers were for it, some teachers were against it, but the kids overwhelmingly were like, we need cops on campus. So I know how, like in the past, the whole Black Lives Matters movement, there was certain things that were put in place, but kids felt like they weren't asked. They're like, we understand that people have a certain relationship with cops, but like no one came and talked to us as students who are on campus, who deal with these issues. And again, every campus is different. And I think like we again try to do one size fits all, which is crazy because as a teacher, we don't do that.
Yeah,
no, it's just like you gotta differentiate as much as possible. Every child, you know, blah blah. So it's like, why are we not differentiating for school? So maybe you may not need a cop at a specific school, but for us, because we've had a lot of gang activity in the past, you know, why would you take them away from us? So I think that's slowly starting to roll back. And with the presence of police, some kids honestly do feel safe. I know staff sometimes feel safe. I'm like, yeah, we see a cop on campus. For others, it's a trigger, right? So it's again, are we asking the people who are on campus, like the kids and the teachers? I just feel like that would be more beneficial. They ask us because we're the ones dealing with it, not people outside making decisions for our campus.
Agreed. Beautiful. Thank you. On top of that, what are some misconceptions outsiders might have about this community?
Oh my gosh.
So you mentioned that you're not from here, or
well, I don't live in North Hills, but I do live in Northridge.
Yes, exactly. So you're close by. So about this community, like nearby as well, what do you think are some misconceptions? Like, because I did learn that teachers live in Calabasas or like 1,000 Oaks, and so
Santa Cruz.
Exactly. So what do you think?
Not Santa Cruz. Sorry.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Lancaster? No.
Like where Magic Mountain is.
Yes, Valencia. Or
Santa Clarita. Santa Clarita. A lot of our teachers are from Santa Clarita.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of them drive from out there as well.
Far.
Yes, and they come all the way out here.
Okay.
It's interesting because where we're at in Monroe North Hills, the surrounding houses are nice and everything, but we don't get those kids. We get kids from outside or the other side of the 405, you know, from Sepulveda, and also we get kids a lot from Panorama, which is like they should be going to Panorama High School, but instead they're coming out here for whatever reason, right? Multiple reasons. But because I've been in so many different committees for leadership and for math, representing our math department, when I go out and we have all these Zoom meetings or when we're meeting in person, and I would bring student samples, they had this misconception of like, oh, Monroe is just like a dumping school or like a school where the gangsters go. Like they saw us as, I don't know why, as like a juvenile hall, like this type of school. And I was like, no, the work I'm bringing. And they're like, oh, and you must teach honors. So I'm like, no, these are not honor students. We call them residential. Some kids are in some programs, but it's like, no, my kids, I treat them as if they were a magnet student.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that people don't believe that our kids can write incomplete sentences, can compute. Like my kids are doing quadratic formula right now, and it's like they're working, they're collaborating. And I recorded my kids with multiple situations as well, and I brought this to our district and other schools. And it's crazy because they're like, wait, this is Monroe? These are Monroe students? Like what? Like it's just like, so the perception is that we just don't have high expectations over kids.
Yes.
Their kids cannot meet those expectations. Their kids are incapable.
Yes.
Or they have this thing that like all of our kids are thugs, gangsters. And this is like, no, our kids are.
If they are, they're smart.
And if they are, they're smart, and they have, they're definitely street smart. I'll tell you that. When it comes to money, it's like really, really quick and witty, and like find those shortcuts.
Yeah.
But I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was walking to the office, and one sub was like telling another sub, he's like, I really like coming to Monroe. These kids are very respectful. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, they're very respectful kids. It's like they're calm. It takes a lot for them to be disrespectful. And I was like, so that made me feel good to hear someone that doesn't work here to see this, and he's just a visiting teacher, a sub, And for him to say that, I'm like, yes, we're starting to slowly change that image. And I remind my kids, because I've been to other campuses, and I tell them, like, you guys are great. You guys are doing a good job. Continue to represent Monroe. When I'm out, you're also representing me. You're representing your campus. You're representing your family. So our kids know. They know they're smart.
Yes.
But I think it has a lot to do also with the teacher. If the teacher cares, they're gonna care.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to that, right? Like I know I'm interviewing you, but I know with my students, like if I treat them, the simple act of treating them as human,
Yes.
goes a long way.
Yeah.
And then they start to feel comfortable, and then they'll make comments. I'm like, Miss, I like this class. Are you going to teach like next year's math? And then you have to break the news and be like, I don't know yet. I don't know. And just a simple act of seeing them for them really goes a long way. Completely awesome. And so on top of that, right? What do you think teachers should understand about students' home lives that would help them better connect with their students?
I think so. Right now, period 1, right? Why are kids showing up late for 30 minutes or an hour late? If it's daily, it's an issue. If it's once in a while, I get it. But like some of our kids, for example, I'm speaking just for my juniors. I have juniors first period. I have checked in with those kids. I'm like, hey, you're rolling in 30 minutes late, 40 minutes late. Some of my kids are like, Miss, I have a job. I work, or my parents couldn't be, like, they had to leave earlier. I had to like help get my little ones, my siblings get ready for school. I mean, if we are checking in with students of why they're being late or why they're absent, it's just like the more we know about them, the more we'll understand. And like as you mentioned, we see that humanity side of it, right? And it's like I tell my kids, I'm like, I have issues too. I have to be here. I teach, but yet it's like teaching them that responsibility. But we're not gonna know if we're making assumptions. So it is best when we check in with them. And then there are those kids that just are completely taking advantage of it. And you'll know. Again, if you're getting to know your kids, you're gonna know who's in it to to get an education, and the others are like for like, hey, there's like valid reasons why things are happening. Same thing with like behavior. When there's misbehavior, it comes from somewhere. And I think one of the biggest things that teachers always assume is like, oh, it's me, or take it personal. And it's like, no, it's not about you. The kid is going through something, and give them their space or get to know them. And like right now, we don't have enough services on campus, but they are always there willing to support. They can't share everything, but it just even an instead of like, hey, this kid's seeing therapy, it's like, okay, gotta keep that in mind. And seeing like this behavior is manifesting from somewhere.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, so again, the humanity of the student goes a long way.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And my last question is, what skills, talents, or knowledge do students develop outside of school that teachers might not always recognize? So this is known as like the funds of knowledge. So things that they already bring into the classroom that you might not right off the bat know or recognize. So what are some of those things that you might think are not always recognized? You did bring up like money, for example. So that's a form of math, right? So some students might know how to deal with money. So like what might be some other?
I think just like being a parent, it's crazy how some of our kids are already parenting their siblings, being that third adult, that third parent. And again, if you don't know your kids, like I just found out one student and during family night, I had no idea her mom, doesn't hear. She's deaf, and the student is signing. And I was like, I didn't know you could do sign language, and that was something like completely.
I think I might have overheard Miss Cisneros speaking about a student that does sign and is fluent in sign.
She's fluent.
Yeah,
100% fluent. So when I was doing my sign language for class, she was like, Miss, sign language, but I didn't make that connection that her mom, because she speaks sign language until I met her mom for family night, and she's translating. And the mom can also read lips, so it's kind of like, are you being honest? She's like, yeah, Miss, like, I'm not gonna lie to my mom. She's like, by the way, she can read lips too. So, so like those type of skills of like, I wouldn't necessarily know about it, unless I ask or, that was shared with me. So just like some of our kids that are coming from other countries, they are coming sometimes with other academic knowledge or they're coming in a little bit more advanced, depending on their education level. Or they're coming in from like, hey, I haven't been in school for 5 years. What? Why? And for us, that seems unfathomable, but we don't know what they've gone through in their country. Maybe there was just no way for them to physically get there. I mean, there's just so many reasons. So also just kids being able to how to survive. Like I mentioned, when some of my juniors work and some of my seniors, I had no idea that a couple of them, they're renting their own room. They're completely independent. Yet they're still coming to school, getting a job, they're going through law to do the whole legal status and stuff like that. It's just crazy to me that it makes me realize how sheltered and how privileged I was growing up, because some of our kids, they go through a lot.
So they have life skills.
Survival and life
survival skills. Yes,
Yeah.
because they don't have a choice.
They don't have a choice,
But
unfortunately.
as a teacher, you wouldn't assume because you view them as younger and children.
Or we teach with our own biases with our own experiences.
Exactly. Yes.
And so if I experience, growing up in a home with both parents, and my parents, like, that's why it's sometimes hard to relate. Like, why are your parents not here?
Yeah.
When I know my parents work crazy jobs, even on the weekends. Like,
Yes.
there was no rest
Yeah.
for my parents, yet they still made it work. But again, it's like, try not to put that assumption on the kids, because you don't know what they're coming in with.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Any last minute thoughts, further thoughts, or something you may want to share?
I think I always tell my kids, when people see you, and this is the first conversation I have with them at the beginning of the year, when people see you, they see your skin color. And unfortunately, people are going to make an assumption about your education level, your economic status. And it's crazy because of the administration we're in right now. Our kids are for the first time seeing it. We live in San Fernando. We live in a bubble. It is not until they leave. So when my kids are graduating, I always tell them, go away from home. And I know parents hate it when I say that. And I'm like, do not go to, I'm a seasoned alumni, but I'm not from here. I came from Bakersfield.
Yeah,
you know? So
that's crazy.
It's like,
you were from
I went
Bakersfield?
out from one valley to another.
When you told me you were from Bakersfield, I was like, none of this makes sense to me. I was crazy because I have my own assumptions, right?
Yes.
I've also been out there,
Yeah.
But yes, so
Yeah, and I saw the extreme of Bakersfield, from
Yeah.
one end to the other.
Completely.
I was very blessed to live in a neighborhood where my neighbors were not that extreme, and
Yes.
but just to, like, when I tell kids, I'm like, people will unfortunately judge you, will judge a book by its cover, and this is why education is so important. And my kids are seeing it right now. They're totally seeing like just everything that's going on. And my kids, my juniors, I can't speak for my freshmen. My freshmen are still like, kind of rolling with everyone else. Like, oh, protesting, we're not coming to school. Where my juniors are like, you're right. We need education, and we need to be here to educate ourselves, and no one can take that away from you. So it went from half the kids being out to now it's like 2 or 3. So my kids have seen the importance of like, yeah, we have to be here. And this is how we fight the system of oppression and break the cycle of poverty.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for your
Thank you.
time. Appreciate it.